Hi, I'm Weiser Cornell, and this is Support for Stressful Times. And I'm sorry to say that for me and many others, the times are still stressful. And luckily, we have each other, and luckily, we have this wonderful awareness process called focusing. And I'm going to be spending a half hour with you today in the process of awareness and presence with ourselves and with each other. Yeah, what's stressful for you these days? One thing that's stressful for me is the horrible stories I read in the news from India, from Israel and Palestine, from all over my country where it seems like there's another pandemic of gun deaths. And I feel the emotional reactions arising in me, sadness and grief and anger and horror, and also a feeling of helplessness and powerlessness. And then I have a tendency to say, well, let me distract myself, let me push those emotions away because there's nothing I can do about them. And then I remind myself that being able to be with our emotional states is doing something. It actually is doing something powerful and important. That our own care for our emotional states makes us more clear and present if there might be something we can do for others and for ourselves. So it's not so easy to be present for challenging, hard emotions, especially the ones that seem to be caused by events out there that we can do nothing about. Do you find that too? Yesterday, one of these challenging situations came very close to me. My beloved partner of 21 years came back from a doctor's appointment where he'd unexpectedly had to have a small operation. And his wound needed care, and there was more blood than I'm comfortable with. And I had a lot of feelings coming up about that. He also needed me to be present and help him change his bandage. So I needed to be present for myself so I could be present for him. What does that mean, being present to myself? It means I'm with the feelings that I'm having. Like there's a difference between having feelings, being swept away, caught up in, carried away by feelings, versus, yeah, the feelings can still be there, and I can be there with them. So that's the magic. And let's try that together right now. I see what some people are writing in the chat. Catherine writes, I'm becoming aware of how brutally hard on myself I am. It wastes so much energy and breaks my heart. Oh, Catherine, that breaks my heart too. And I'm so glad you're becoming aware of it, because awareness is the beginning. So start with awareness, and let's do that together right now. So being able to pause and feel your body, my body, present here and now. I'm feeling my body in contact with what I'm sitting on. And as soon as I do that, I can feel myself slowing down a bit, kind of sinking down. You feel that a little bit for yourself too? What happens when you start to pause and feel your body? Yeah, there you go. And a deeper breath comes when I do that. So already there's a shift going on just because I'm pausing and feeling my body a bit more. And I begin to be aware in the middle area of my body, throat, chest, stomach especially. And I can tell that in my stomach, there are some tense feelings that have to do with some things I read in the newspaper today and my memory of helping Joe with his wound yesterday. So I am sensing something in me feeling tense. So that's the language that I find really helps. We start our sentence with, I am sensing, and then go on to say, I'm sensing something in me. And what is something in me feeling? I'm sensing something in me feeling sad. I'm sensing something in me feeling grief. Perhaps that's a big something, but it's still not as big as I am. I am here. So I'm reading the chat, and Marguerite says, I'm trying hard not to be regretful. I'm not sure regrets are helpful. Yes, that's so interesting. The point about some feelings perhaps not being helpful. And yet, does pushing away really work? What I find about feelings that come back again and again is those are the feelings that I tried to push away. There's a process that we can go through with our feelings that in which they actually evolve, they process through. Emotions, feelings are meant to move. They're meant to move on to their next step. And yes, there are certain kinds of feelings, and regret seems to be one of them, that seem to return again and again. We ruminate on them. They're like a unfinished song that keeps coming back. But there are processes that we can do that even with regret, that can help them shift. And the thing about regret is, what I discovered about regret, it's about an earlier time in my life, whether that's yesterday or when my mother died 18 years ago. It's an earlier time in my life where I did something or failed to do something, and I'm really sorry about it now. So does anybody have something like that going on? Maybe this is for Marguerite and anybody else who's got some regrets. If you've got something like that, you can say, here's what I do. What resource did that younger version of me need in order to make that decision a different way? And that question acknowledges that whoever I was 19 years ago, 18 years ago, or yesterday, I didn't have all the resources I have today. And therefore, I made a decision I'm not proud of now. There's something, I'm not trying to forgive myself. I'm not trying to push the regrets away. I'm just saying, what resource did that younger me need? The decision I made in relation to my mother that I regret now, I needed somebody or something in my life to help me do what we're doing right now. To pause, take time, sense, and allow the feelings to be there. That was missing from me then. And that's too bad. But it doesn't have to be a haunting regret that keeps making me feel bad about myself. Another question that's come in the chat from Della is, it's hard to articulate feelings. Do I need to put words on my emotions? No, you don't. One of my favorite things about being able to be with how we feel is that we do not have to put words to our feelings. We can call our feelings this. I feel this. And not yet have words for them. Because feelings come before words, and they need a chance to come. So when I remember what happened yesterday with my partner and his wound, unexpectedly coming home, he didn't expect that to happen in the doctor's office yesterday, that they would have to remove a toenail. And I'm feeling right now a feeling about it that I can't put into words very well. I can say it's something like queasy, but that's not all of it. And we can use the wonderful word something to help us point toward how we're feeling without having to articulate it. Lily writes, I sense I'm merged, meaning not able to be with. And since I'm merged with a defensive, angry part of me that I didn't realize I was merged with. So the realization that we've become merged with a feeling is such an exciting moment, so full of possibility. What can you do then? Lily writes, it's so helpful to recognize this so that I can turn toward it and say, hello, I know you're there, and I'm here with you, and I'm listening with interested curiosity. Beautiful. And recognizing that there's some feeling that I've become merged with, some feeling that has become me. I'm seeing through the eyes of this feeling of irritation or defensiveness or anger or self-blame. What am I so full of that feeling for now has become who I am, what I'm looking out from the eyes of. There's something like that going on for you. And one of the ways to discover something like that is to start a sentence with the words, I'm sensing, and then notice what you're sensing. So I'm sensing anger, I'm sensing sadness, I'm sensing grief, I'm sensing queasiness. And then add the words, something in me. I'm sensing something in me feeling queasy. I'm sensing something in me feeling irritated. I'm sensing something in me feeling sad. And it might feel like more than something in you. And we can say that as well. And it feels like all of me. Haja writes, I'm feeling something in me that aches for the people caught in Palestine, Israel, and India, COVID and hurricanes. And as I bring attention and presence, I find strong compassion. Let me say something about compassion. Compassion is not something in me. So the emotions that we need to say something in me about are the challenging ones, the contracted ones, like anger, sadness, regret, and fear, anxiety. Something in me is anxious. But when we feel compassion, I find no problem with saying, I feel compassion. I am compassionate. I am full of compassion. I'm curious. I'm loving. I'm warm. Because those emotions, compassion and so on, empathy, they don't need my company. They are part of my ability to give company to others and myself. And these feelings like compassion arise naturally. I'm hearing people saying that it's a relief not to have words, and it's a relief to know that we can talk about the resources we were missing when we were younger. Wendy writes, When I sense into a feeling, I often get a gesture or movement, and then I may find the word. But it's often the gesture that encapsulates it the most. Nice. What a good tip. Yeah. So I might feel a feeling and I can't describe it. It's like this, or it's like this. Exactly. The gesture maybe, or the sound, right? I feel a feeling like, ugh. Yeah. So those might help. Yeah. Marion writes, quite a big part of me is scared of the future. Okay. So start with I am sensing. I'm sensing a big part of me scared of the future. See if it helps to say I am sensing. The reason we do that, the reason we say I am sensing, is that the feeling isn't here by itself. I am here with it. And as I said at the very start of our webinar today, it's being with what we feel that matters the most. It's a great gift to be able to be with how we feel. And there's so many ways that I and other people push our feelings away, distract ourselves from us, distract ourselves from those feelings, avoid them, deny them. Do you know another way I think people try to push their feelings away? Finding blame. Who is to blame? I think this search for who is to blame is quite often a way of not simply feeling the feelings that are involved. And that has to do with blaming others, blaming governments, blaming political parties, blaming fill in the blank. And it also has to do with blaming ourselves. There is a part of us, it's true for you, there's often a part of a person that is blaming them. And this could have to do with regrets as well. Part of you is blaming you for the actions you've taken or failed to take that led to this moment that feels bad somehow. And it's as if the part of you that's blaming is in a funny way trying to help not have to have the feelings that come. When we just pause and say, yeah, there's something really hard about this. And we see how these people who live near each other, how horribly they're treating each other. That's so sad and makes me feel helpless and powerless. But maybe I can decide who's to blame and then I don't have to feel so bad. So I just want to point to that. That quite often, I believe, that search for who to blame, who's at fault, is a displacement, a way that a part of us tries to avoid being with the actual feelings that would come. What are the feelings that would come? What are the feelings that would come in me, a white person of privilege, if I actually face how hard life has been for people of color in my country? I'm not saying that to blame anyone. I'm saying that I think some of the major issues of our time are going to require of us that we can be with our feelings and stand them. As you can tell, I have some feelings coming right now. But not feelings of sadness so much as feelings that this matters so much to me. I'm passionate about this idea that our ability to be with how we feel and allow that feeling to be there and not try to turn it into defensiveness or blame. This could really help the world. And I hope it can help you feel that life is possible right now. So feelings like lonely, someone in the chat spoke of feeling lonely. Yes, let's be with feelings like lonely. Give them our company. The difference between trying to change our feelings, try to make them light, to try to make them go away, and the difference between staying with our feelings and then from there, an action may come. If I can really acknowledge a feeling of lonely, for example, inside me, perhaps from there, I'll feel like a new kind of reaching out that I hadn't thought about before. When we're pushing our feelings away, we're not as smart. Our minds are not as clear. We're filled up with the effort to not feel what we're feeling. But when we can allow how we feel, that I am sensing, this is how I feel, and I am here with that, more becomes possible.
David writes, it strikes me that sometimes it's good to sit with a warm feeling. And a warm feeling can need my attention just as an unhappy feeling does. Absolutely. It can need you to stay with it, to feel it fully, to allow it to be there. And yet, it doesn't have to be, I'm sensing something in me feels warm. It can be, I feel warm, and I'm staying with that. That's just a little difference in language. Thank you so much. We still have 5 or 6 more minutes, and I'm just pausing to sense how nice it is to be with you, how nice it is to share this process of allowing how we feel, being present in company with others. Jennifer writes, I'm sensing something in me has absorbed dominance culture, whether I wanted it or not. Yes, that's so interesting because I think it's inevitable, and yet awareness can allow it to change. What we've absorbed, once we become conscious of it, we can feel sad about our unconsciousness and begin to see things differently. So people are writing in the chat about, glad that I talked about what I said about blame. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your good wishes for Joe. Yes. Haja writes, there's a little part that wants to feel guilty that it's feeling grateful. So sweet. Let's give a hug to that. Yes, yes, yes. All right, good. All right, good. Now we have 3 more minutes. Let me just review what I said today. So I was talking about the power of presence with ourselves. That when we pause and sense how we are coming into presence with ourselves. We can use simply being aware of the body, pausing and sensing. We don't even have to put into words what we're feeling. And when we feel how we're feeling, if it's challenging, if it's difficult, it's even more valuable to pause and sense using the language, I am sensing something in me feels. And that there are many ways that people push away and deny how they're feeling. I think because we need to develop the skill of being with how we feel. If we have that skill of being with how we feel, we don't need to do those deflection methods. We're not afraid of our feelings. We can allow the feelings to come. And when we do, they do transform. Feelings that are felt are on their way to something else. Everything we feel and allow to be here is on its way to being something next. I talked about how blaming, looking for who's to blame, either others or ourselves, is a method of deflection that I think is rather, well, unfortunate and maybe even dangerous. I blame the blamers. No. I just want us to be aware of that and aware of the ways that not allowing our feelings especially as a society, can contribute to the continuation of some of the systematized injustices that hurt people. So I'm a big fan of building our ability to turn toward how we feel and be present with it. So nice to be with you today. So glad it was helpful. I do it every 2 weeks. Come see me again. Take care. Mwah. Bye for now.